I ran into an old friend a few days back at the supermarket, and we were trying to catch up and everything, but it was time for both of us to leave, right? And then she said to me, let's catch up, let's do lunch. So I said, yeah, where should we meet up? And as soon as I said that, she did a double take, like, really? You have time to meet up for lunch? You actually can get out of work? And then I went on to explain to her that I wasn't working the way I used to. I wasn't working as much as I used to, and explain other things to her as well. So after speaking, because usually I will do so many things at once. So she said to me, okay, so it's safe to say that at this point is the lowest point in your working life. How do you feel about that? I agreed with her. I said, yeah. However, it also happens to be the most fulfilling, the most rewarding points in my life. Because for the first time, I have structure, I have direction, and I have a purpose. And I would not trade that for anything. See, what she was really referring to was at the time we were friends, right? I went to my place of worship, I prayed, and like a baby in the kingdom of God, I would ask God for one thing, He would bless me with five. So me being me, I would ask God for a business or a job, and He would give me five different ones. And then I would take everything because I hate being idle. I don't like being idle. So sometimes when it looks like I'm just watching TV, I'm really not. My mind is working, even if I'm not physically working. My mind is constantly working. So at the time, I was working around the clock, 7 days a week, around the clock. I had no morning or evening. At some point, I was running about 3 locations simultaneously. So I didn't have time for anything else. I loved it. I wasn't complaining. I loved it. That was what I wanted. I didn't want to create time for anything else, you know? So it got so bad that even if I had to go on a date here, if the person was serious enough, they would bring the date to me at my workplace. I'm not going out to meet anyone. And if I did go out socially, most of the time it was to shadow other places to see what they're doing and to incorporate that in my work, you know. So it was that bad, and that was what she was referring to. Even to my place of worship, I hardly ever went. You know, I kept making excuses that I was too busy. Maybe at the time I felt like I had the blessings I needed at the time. You see, but the thing about blessing is that it's in 2 parts. Now, the first part is to receive. The second part is to sustain it. Most of the time, we think it requires effort and hard work to sustain it, when it wasn't our effort and hard work that gave us the blessing in the first place. Does that make any sense? So what it really takes to sustain it is to go back to say thank you. Why? Because gratitude brings in more. When you go back to say thank you for maybe the blessing of a business, for instance, what you're doing is asking God to step into it, to take control of it, and to sustain it for you. So what happens is that He starts to guide you. He starts to direct you. Now miracles start to happen. Divine connection starts to happen. There will be growth. There will be expansion. Now imagine a woman, for instance, a wife and a mother that has to take care of the children, take care of the home, go to work, come back to home to do dinner. And she walks in one day and sees her husband and her children. They've made dinner, they've made her dinner as well, they've cleaned everywhere, she doesn't have to do anything. And they pull up a chair for her and say, oh, you know, we just thought to do this for you today. We love you, we appreciate you for everything you do for us and everything, and we thought today you should relax. We just wanted to use this to show a sign of appreciation. That would encourage that woman, wouldn't it? Or imagine a man, he wakes up in the morning to breakfast in bed, and his wife kneels down by his bedside and she goes, oh, I just wanted to say thank you for everything. You're my king, you're my hero. Thank you for being my husband. Thank you for being a good father to our children, if they have any. Thank you for being the leader of the home. Thank you for this. I love you, I appreciate you. That man will get up, put on an invisible cape, and fly to the moon to pluck out the moon for his family. Because sometimes all we need is acknowledgement, all we need is encouragement. Let me give you a good example from the Christian religion, right? And let's look at the story of Jesus. So at some point, Jesus was walking alongside Galilee, and he came across 10 lepers, right? And these lepers, they saw him from afar and they shouted, Jesus, Son of God, have pity on us. And then he said to them, go and show yourselves to the priest. Right? So the 10 of them got up and they went to show. As they were going to show themselves to the priest, they were cleansed of the leprosy. And then one of them, just one of them, came back and he threw himself at Jesus' feet and he said, oh, thank you, thank you. And Jesus said, but it was 10 of you. How come you're the only one that came back to say thank you? Okay, anyway, you can get up, you can go. Your faith has made you well. Please keep in mind, the 10 of them were cleansed. It's a physical thing, so they received physical healing, right? However, only one of them that came back to say thank you actually received something more. He received sustenance. He received wellness. Now, when it comes to wellness, it has to do not just with the physical, but with the mental, emotional, physical, and spiritual as well. And then the dictionary states that when you're referring to wellness, you're not just surviving, you're actually thriving. So what he received, was sustenance to actually thrive in every area of his life. Another good example is the story of Ezekiel in the Valley of Dry Bones. So God had transported Ezekiel to the Valley of Dry Bones through a vision, right? And it was recorded that the place was really ghoulish and very scary because there were so many dry bones. The bones were very dry, which means they had been there for so long, right? So God said to Ezekiel to prophesy upon the dry bones that they may become whole. As Ezekiel started to prophesy, all the bones started to come together. The tendons came together, the ligaments and flesh covered it, and they became human. However, they had no life in them. Part 1. So after that, God told him to prophesy again for the breath of life upon those dry bones, to speak life into them. And he did, and there was breath of life in them. Part 2. Now, if he had stopped at part 1, this would have been humans that were like zombies because there was no life in them. Until he took the second step and spoke life onto those bones, and they received sustenance. Now, in my case, I never did that. As soon as I got my blessings, I took to the hills and I started to use my effort to build it. And one by one, those blessings were taken away. Now, was God being wicked? Absolutely not. I am the child of a very loving father that needed to learn a valuable lesson. Now, an adage says, spare the rod and spoil the child. And I'm grateful. I'm so thankful that I wasn't spared. Because within the years of my boot camp with God, I came to realize something, and I came to learn a valuable lesson. That all those things I thought meant the world to me, all those things I was running around for and was running helter-skelter for, actually didn't mean much to me. What means a lot to me is my purpose and working in alignment towards that. And I will never trade that for anything. I will continuously be in an attitude of gratitude. So, maybe you have been asking God for bread and He gave you tea instead. Be grateful, because sometimes what we think we want is not what we need. Maybe you're asking God for a 4-bedroom house and He gives you a 1-bed flat. Pick up your dancing shoes and dance around that 1-bed flat. Be grateful, because you never know. He could give you that 4-bedroom house and other people will ask to move in with you because you have space. And the moment you refuse, you become an enemy to your own detriment. Who knows? It could be that wife, your nagging wife. She's constantly screaming at you, nagging you, to the extent that you don't even want to come home. That may be difficult, but you could change your approach. You could go home, give her a hug, and thank her for everything she does. Let her know you appreciate her as your wife. Let her know you see her effort. You see her. You see the things she does. And you appreciate it. Nobody fights a goodwill. What about that husband? It could be that husband that never spends time with you. You have complained about it so much, you two hardly ever speak to each other. That may feel like rejection. But you can start now. Get rid of any negativity in your home. If he comes back at 4 a.m., be there. Because you see, sometimes, because of the stress of the hustle and bustle of running a home and taking care of a family, men need a route to escape. And maybe that's what he does. Maybe he goes out with his friends till about 4 a.m. When he walks in through the door, be there. Hand him a glass of water. Run him a bath if you have to. Make the home conducive enough to be his escape route. What about that boss? That treacherous boss that never pays you and overworks you. Thank them. Appreciate them for it. Let them know you appreciate the opportunity, because you know why? At least you have a job. And the best way to show your appreciation is to be on top of your game at work. It could be your staff. They make you shout all the time. You don't even know why you hired them anymore. Appreciate them. If they don't contribute anything to the business, at least they contribute their time. Imagine if they all went on strike. You wouldn't be able to run the business yourself, would you? Appreciate them. Call them into a room. Acknowledge them. Let them know you see what they do. Let them know that you understand the effort they put into the business. If it's possible, give them bonus. If the business cannot afford it, buy them lunch. Give them transport fare for the day. But appreciate them. What about that child? That child is 10 years old but can't multiply 2 by 2. You keep calling the child a moron. You keep smacking the child. You keep calling the child a dullard. You can change that around. Speak life onto that child. Begin to call that child a genius. Tell that child, I know you can do it. I know you have it in you. Speak life onto that child. And you know what will happen? The universe will correspond to the nature of your song. The universe will correspond to the nature of your song. Because gratitude brings in more love, more happiness, more peace, more joy, more money, more abundance. So no matter how bad things get, always make an effort to practice the attitude of gratitude. Namaste.